Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had a smashing Saturday so far. Today we're going to be diving into the cryptocurrency markets, of course, and what an interesting 24 hours it has been. What a brutal 24 hours it has been, in fact. We're going to be getting into a number of different things in this video. We're, of course, going to take a look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano. We're going to be also going over what we talked about yesterday, that yesterday was indeed non-farm payroll for the US. This is where they released the data in association with jobs and the statistics surrounding it for the US. This is a very good indication of how the economy is doing. This also will tie in with what Jerome Powell had previously came out and said, that he's going to start tapering off stock buybacks and sort of reining in inflation. And how this is all having an effect on the market. We're going to be looking at liquidations. They've definitely played a part in what's took place today. And a few other things. We're going to be also taking a quick look at our traditional financial instruments, the dollar, etc., oil, S&P, and the FTSE. I know they don't trade into the weekend, but they're definitely worth taking a look at, as we're kind of correlated with these markets now. We're correlated with the kind of global finance of the world, and also global events. We know there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding a new variant and how deadly is it going to be, and all these kind of factors associated with it. Also, a lot of US lawmaker requests, a lot of things going on a regulatory side. So first of all, before I get into any of what we're going to talk about today, let me just say, do not panic, ladies and gentlemen. It's the worst thing you can do in this situation. I've seen this time and time again, and that gives me reason to believe that this time is no different from the prior, and they've all been fantastic buying opportunities previously. Now, I'm not saying you should ape in here. I personally am going to be accumulating this dip, but I'm going to see where the land lies over the next sort of couple of hours. And perhaps a couple of days, because this was severe. This had a lot to do with liquidations. $2.5 billion worth of liquidations took place. It's significant. It would have absolutely caused a downturn and really probably was responsible for a lot of this candle on the daily for Bitcoin. But there's also a lot going on across the board. So that is certainly one factor. People are mentioning the whole Evergrande thing again. We've covered Evergrande in a lot of detail. In fact, I gave a Twitter thread where I gave you reasons why Evergrande was indeed going to go into insolvency and go bankrupt. There is no way they are going to be able to service the debt that they owe without a bailout, and they've already been told they're not going to get a bailout. So that is going to have an effect on the markets at some point, but it's almost becoming a bit of a straw man at the moment. Every time there's a dip, people look to Evergrande. If you understand the Evergrande situation, you'd have already prepared for the fact that they are very likely to fail and there is going to be a downturn as a result of them. So I don't think it's really that correlated with Evergrande, what we've seen here. First of all, you know, the market's got smashed. The market's got smashed because of Bitcoin, all altcoins. And every time you think any different, the cryptocurrency market gives you a scarce reminder that things aren't that different. We still absolutely follow Bitcoin. What I really want people to understand now, the 4-year cycle, which we've followed for 4 years now, and it's played out very accurately today, in my opinion, is no longer going to play out to a T, in the sense that we're going to go into a bear market in 2022 like we did in 2018. The whole game has changed, ladies and gentlemen. Crypto doesn't just exist in its own bubble now. It's affected by the traditional financial world and has many of the same players that are in that world now in the crypto space. I'm not worried about this at all. I think crypto is on a path of adoption that it hasn't even really started yet. And I think we still have trillions of dollars to flow into the crypto space. But how we get there, nobody's going to be able to tell you with 100% accuracy. We are going to get there, but there's going to be twists and turns within that. For us just to perfectly follow 2017 and have this kind of parabola towards the end of the year would be too good to be true, really. It would be too easy. And not everybody can make money, unfortunately. So we're seeing these kind of curveballs thrown at us. It's kind of to be expected. When we really put this into perspective, we did say that this had essentially signaled a new trend. And what I want to do, I'll quickly use another chart. We'll use Coinbase just to get this point across, is really point out what's going on here. So this was a low. This is a higher high than you'd previously made. Higher low, higher high, and you're still putting in a higher low. If you had failed this, that would have been a pretty detrimental sign, and then you could have potentially been setting up a head and shoulders, which we're still going to watch out for over here. But right now, I don't think there's too much to worry about. I think liquidations had a lot to do with this. I think the global financial landscape of things is very uncertain. You can see Ethereum actually got a huge buyback. People obviously took this as a great opportunity. Still in this trend that we're in here, making higher highs and higher lows. There's not too much to worry about. Cardano got smashed off. It's so annoying. Every time Cardano has a run, you guys know how bullish I am on ADA. There seems to be some sort of a market disruption. But it's the game we're in, guys. When things don't go to plan, what do? You act accordingly, and you switch your strategy up and you deal with it. You don't blame other people. You don't look for excuses. You deal with the situation. I still hold every single Cardano I've ever bought, and I'm going to continue to do so, and in fact add to that position because I believe in what these guys are trying to achieve, and I believe crypto is here to stay for a long time. Tomorrow we're going to be making a video in relation to the kind of trajectory I think the crypto space as a whole takes and some of the cryptos within it take, because we already have a blueprint from another market that has a lot of resemblance to us being a technology and cryptos to come out of it and be the kind of new thing. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about very quickly is the non-farm payroll that we spoke about yesterday and how this would be decisive for markets. The figures that they actually put out and they were expecting were significantly below the actual data. And this is just a quick summary of it. November jobs reports, payroll grew by 210,000, unemployment rate falls to 4.2. Non-farm payroll, 210,000 jobs added versus what they were expecting with 550,000. So less than half and then some of the jobs that they were expecting to have been made in November actually came to fruition. And this is a key indicator of how the economy is doing. Is it growing? Is it strong? And are we seeing growth as a result of that? This ties in very nicely. One reason we said this was significant was because we know the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, has came out and said that he's going to have to start tapering off stock buybacks and also inflation as a whole. He's going to have to start reining in, whether that be with interest rate hikes. He's going to have to cause a bit of deflation. This absolutely, one reason Bitcoin's had such a run and markets as a whole was because of March 2020 and just how much money they needed to pump into the system via inflation, via inflating the money supply to keep things afloat in order to kind of care package people a lifeboat. So he's saying he's going to rein that back. That, of course, is going to have catastrophic events, potentially for markets, depending on what degree he decides to do it to. Can he really do that if the economy isn't as strong as potentially it may seem? And also, can he do that knowing that there is now the Okram variant that is still uncertain with what kind of effect that's going to have on the global landscape? And if we see anything like we saw in 2020 March, there's no way they can taper inflation. They're going to have to keep this thing afloat. They can't just let it sink at this point. It will somewhere down the line eventually, but we're a while off there. And I think whilst they've got this kind of one trick that they're going to keep pulling, they're going to absolutely do that. Unemployment rates, however, did indeed drop. The average hourly earning month over month didn't do as well as they thought it was going to. It's a joke that they even say 0.3% or 0.4% is even an acceptable figure. Certainly given inflation and how much of the buying power their wages have actually lost. That's an absolute joke. Boils my blood when I see those statistics, but whatever. Average hourly earnings year on year didn't quite meet. So it seems the economy wasn't quite as strong as they had expected. This will affect Jerome's decision in relation to taper. It takes a huge amount of liquidity that goes into buying, buy pressure, positive pressure for these stocks off the table. And what's bad for the stock market in many ways is bad for the crypto space because they're all a global market that has liquidity going into it. And if that liquidity somewhat dries up or is taken a little bit off the table, every market gets hit. So that's why we're really doing these daily updates to get you guys into this mind frame now as investors of looking at all sides of the coin and coming up with your, doing your own homework on these things, looking at all markets and saying, okay, well, the answers to what's going on over here lie over here, etc., etc. And that's what we're hopefully doing in this video. Oil, the S&P, the FTSE 100, the Dixie ceiling indecision as well. There's indecision across markets. And one thing that is good out of all this is that Bitcoin's actually taken a direction. I gave this analogy that when you get stuck, when you drive your car and you get stuck in mud, typically the first thing you will do is rev that car to see if you can get out one way or the other. And just because you were going forwards in the first place before you got stuck doesn't mean that you aren't going to rev it backwards if it means you getting out of that rut. And that's kind of that's Bitcoin essentially for you at the moment. Like I say, I think we're playing a very different game where we don't just follow this perfectly. Of course, the 4-year cycle theory is tethered to the halving, which happens every 4 years. That isn't going away, so that is still going to be a pressure that is going to have an impact on the price. But what I think really happens now is we go on more of a longer term adoption curve with less of these big macro volatile moves, more of the small ones, and we see continuation. So I'm not worried. I don't want you guys to be either. That's why I'm making these videos. Understand that there's a lot going on in markets. I'm going to keep you up to date. I thought this was very interesting. This is a kind of trend line for Bitcoin, if you will, that we didn't bounce too far off of. We did wick below it, but of course markets aren't going to perfectly execute. It's typical where key levels of one thing that's so annoying and typical about key levels is you often dip a toe below or above them just to kind of annoy everyone. So I found that very interesting. You also have over here, this is Bitcoin future contract long liquidations on OKX. Bitcoin futures contract long liquidations just reached a 1 month high of 77 million. Previous 1 month high was 21 million, so significant uptick. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to keep you up to date as things go on. Let me just make this point absolutely apparent. We are not entering a 2018 bull market. Certainly not just yet. I don't see any signs for that, and I am still expecting continuation in the bull market. I will be accumulating this dip when I see how the land lies. I'm not telling you guys that that's what you should do. Do your own due diligence and come up with your own reasoning. But ultimately, I think that crypto is the new thing. I think it's a kindred to the stocks that came out of the dot-com boom. I think it's a kindred to the stocks that came out of the internet, because blockchain is the new thing. It improves how we do things in many ways, and it's the new technology on the block, and the cryptocurrencies to come out of it are going to get adopted. And that adoption is what's going to drive the price. And we're not even on, we've barely even started that adoption curve. So hang in there, guys. I know it's panicky. This is crypto, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you that are new to crypto, it's not like we're seeing anything out of the ordinary. It's an extremely volatile market. Understand that, act accordingly. And, we'll see. Let's just put this. Let's go back to my Bitcoin chart before I wrap things up. This was significant as well. We did say that this is going to act as a key level that's going to decide direction as well. This ascending support line, we bounced off it here. When we came here, we saw a little bit of a buyback. It was weak. And then as you broke that really set things in motion. Patterns do play out typically. This wedge is obviously broken to the downside. And this is just how markets go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. I'm going to be bringing out more updates throughout the day on certain cryptocurrencies. And tomorrow I'm going to be going into an in-depth analysis of how I think the crypto space now takes shape and the trajectory that it goes on. I'm going to love and leave you on that note, ladies and gentlemen. Don't panic. Hang in there. Know what you're investing in, and it will all make sense. Have a fantastic Saturday, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video.